The fact of the matter is, if you clicked on the link for this car review, you did not come here expecting screeching tires, smoky burnouts, and high revving engines. But you did expect to see the all-new RAV4. And I think that kind of actually sums up my time spent with this vehicle. This is, I need to say outright, a great vehicle. Toyota did a great job with this. For many of you out there, this is going to be a great purchase, and I think what you see here is going to represent a lot of the trim levels and so forth that many of you will be looking at. But I kind of thought of it this way. I noticed when I was driving this car, I spent a lot of time listening to Jack Johnson on the satellite radio, and I thought that was a pleasant, kind of clear analogy for how you might want to look at this car. I mean, it's definitely easy listening. It's not going to offend anybody. It's going to meld into the background if you don't give it a lot of attention, and you can really live with it almost every day. And that nicely typifies what you see here, which is indeed the all-new RAV4. This is the all-wheel drive model and the XLE trim line. But nonetheless, thank you for tuning in. I'm Greg Cavanaugh of the Gallup Journey magazine. Let's take a look. Starting with the exterior styling here of the all-new RAV4, the first thing you'll notice is it does not look like the previous gen RAV4. And that's very noticeable in the rear, where you no longer have a side hinged rear tailgate and you don't have the infamous kind of baby bump spare tire dangling off the back. So now that gave that RAV4 a fairly noticeable profile. No one would argue it was a cool looking vehicle, but it did make it very clearly a RAV4. And that's kind of my argument here, that I do think this is a pretty good looking vehicle, but it has become a bit generic in the restyle. In fact, a buddy of mine even said, "Is that a Forester?" And that kind of exemplifies the market. I mean, the Escape, Kia, Hyundai, I mean, they all are starting to look alike. Now, some styling cues I would like to point out. This kind of jowl-like treatment to the front fascia, I'm not a big fan of that. I mean, the front end they're meant to kind of have some presence now, but it's a little bit overwrought. Now, my biggest complaint, again, is the C-pillar on this vehicle. Just like in the Buick Encore and other stuff I've done, I really don't like that slanted Pontiac vibe style C-pillar that pretty much every crossover on the market is using right now. To me, it's just a little juvenile and it looks like you're trying too hard. Now, as a whole, it's a good looking vehicle. It definitely fits within the design language of Toyota. It's not as egregious as the new Toyota trucks that are going to be coming out and the 4Runner and so forth. But, you know, it looks pretty good. I'm not a big, huge fan of it in red either. I think in the right color, this thing is going to look a lot better, particularly like a slate gray or something along that lines. But, you know, as a whole, I'd give Toyota, say, a B, maybe even a B+ in the styling department. Now for the ubiquitous back seat shot. Well, frankly, the space back here is awesome. I'm sitting behind myself right now. I'm 5'8", I'm no giant, but you can see I have a ton of leg room. One of the ideas here is this. Besides being bigger, this new RAV4 is bigger, you also end up with a higher roof line in these crossovers, which allows you to kind of raise the height of the driver's seat and move it forward a little bit and still not feel cramped, still have quite a bit of space. And you can see that yields dividends back here when I'm sitting behind myself. I mean, a 6-footer back here is more than comfortable. And width is good too. 3 people abreast here. While you're not going to do a long trip with it, it is definitely tolerable. Not really, well, it's more than tolerable. It's decent, a decent amount of space, and it's nice and flat. Same on the floor here. There's no hump there, even though it is all-wheel drive. So that's, you know, kudos. Nice job to Toyota on that, A+. Now, I do have a couple gripes about the back area here. First of all, I'm driving the XLE, and I don't know if you can get this on the Limited or not, but there is no accessory outlets or vents back here for the second row. I'm not sure why. I mean, I have that on my 2001 Mercedes. So there is a vent high up in the dash, which I think maybe is supposed to kick the air back here, you know, air conditioning and heating, but I'm just not sure why that's not there, especially the accessory outlet. There is a nice cup holder here in the door, no problems there. Now, this does recline, which is real nice. You can go quite a ways back, and of course you can go forward quite a bit too. Now, what I really don't understand though is why doesn't the seat also move fore and aft? I drove a Pontiac Torrent, and I think it was like 2008. It was one of the first video reviews I ever did. That second row moved fore and aft. This is 2013. Why don't we have that on this vehicle? Frankly, what that does, it allows you to have more space in the back when you need it, when you have shorter people or no kids in here. And if you need to take Shaquille O'Neal to the airport, you can slam it all the way back, and I mean, it's like riding in a limousine. Now, again, space is good. I put my kids' car seats in here, as I always do. And kind of the definitive thing I noticed is that my daughter really couldn't get her feet on the back of my seat and kick on it, you know, while I'm driving, you know, annoying me thoroughly. She could just kind of use her tiptoes. So that was a reference to me that, yeah, this is a good amount of legroom, a good amount of space. Well, I had to give you guys a reference for the cargo area. You know, that's the shot I always love to show because that really matters to me. Frankly, the new RAV4 is quite big. You can see this thing's really deep. I'll even give you the litmus test with myself here. Not bad. Doesn't, you know, compare with my Mercedes wagon I just showed you guys, but it is pretty big. In fact, I had to bring a different frame of reference this time. You can see the stroller fits no problem, and this is not a small like scissors stroller. This is a big single stroller, but still there's even quite a bit of space left over. You could pile up some suitcases in there, go on a long trip with family of four or whatever, no problem. Always, you can put those seats down and you gain a ton of space for your Home Depot, IKEA antiquing runs. Now, one of the key differences from the last gen Toyota is that they nixed the third row, which would matter to someone like me. But to many people, that's actually a benefit because it takes the spare tire off of the back of the tailgate here, puts it underneath where it kind of properly should be out of the elements. And then there's a lot of space down there for things like jumper cables and the like that you can just keep down there and not have to worry about them. So I gotta say, Toyota, good work on the cargo space. I'm actually pretty impressed. Here in the front seat, the RAV4 is a pretty great place. I know I say that about most vehicles, but I mean, frankly, there's really just nothing to complain about here. The shoulder width, the space is really good. The seats are really comfortable, which is going to make this a great vehicle for a long trip. And, you know, the ergonomics are great. Everything's within easy reach and so forth. Now, I do have just a couple small gripes or complaints, if you will. Nothing major, but one of the big things I did get annoyed with is in an effort to, I guess, give you easier access to the HVAC controls here and to give the dash a little bit of flair, they made this kind of shelf-like accent, and they put an accent piece of cloth on there, which looks good. But what it does is it makes this space underneath really hard to access and to see. You have the eco mode and sport mode buttons down there. You've got your aux jack for your infotainment and your power and some good storage, and that kind of impedes that. Also, in regards to infotainment, the center screen here is decent size and easy to reach, but it's kind of hard to see in direct sunlight. And I noticed with these polarized sunglasses, it's also harder to read. Lastly, the carbon fiber trim that is in this one I'm driving seems just ridiculous. I mean, this is a RAV4. Are we saving weight here? I mean, come on, we're not fooling anybody. All right, so let's talk performance here. I'm gonna try and get this in one take because I wanna give you guys the two metrics I think that matter most. You know, no one expects this to be a speed demon. It's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder with dual overhead cams, variable valve timing and so forth. Makes 176 horsepower at like 6,000 RPM, which is almost the red line, and it makes 172 foot-pounds of torque at about 4,000 RPM. So, you know, no one's expecting big power numbers out of this. It's made it to a 6-speed automatic transmission. What we're going to do here is we are going to get on the highway. It's one of the entrance ramps where you got to make the big swooping curve, and then you got to somehow be up to speed with traffic right away. This is a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit, and most people are going about 70. So we're going to see how it does there. And then once we're doing that, I am going to reset the trip, and we're going to see what kind of real-world fuel economy we're also getting on the highway. I'm going to try and get a secondary shot on my phone here so you guys can see all this, and hopefully I also don't get in an accident. So if you don't see this video, you know what happened. Here we go. All right, so we are getting on the highway. Ironically, we are behind a Ford Fiesta, but we're gonna see how we do here. I'm gonna get my second B-roll going. You can see where we're at. We're gonna go up there, and here we go. So 172 pound-feet of torque and 176 horsepower from a 2.5 liter is supposed to be a nice blend of reasonable performance with, more importantly, good fuel economy. Now, this is rated at 2229, and remember, this is the all-wheel drive model. Okay, Ford Fiesta, come on. All right, we're gonna pass them on the left. Here we go. Pay attention to the tach and the speedometer. Pretty much to the floor there. And we are back in. It's 70 miles an hour. Okay, now we are going to reset the fuel economy here. There we go, it's at 0. Let's see how we do. So 22.29 for city and highway fuel economy. Now, if you don't get the all-wheel drive, you can basically get 2 more miles per gallon in the highway and city, bumping you up to 31 and 24. And those are competitive numbers for the segment. If you check out other things in the segment, they're all about that same range. So in terms of comfort and ride quality, it's not the quietest of cars, but it's also, it's acceptable for the market, and it's certainly not loud. In terms of ride quality, it's a nice balance between a somewhat sporty and controlled ride, but also with some elements of comfort. So I really don't have a lot of complaints there. The steering is nicely weighted. It's a little too direct and quick on center. I think maybe in an effort to be excessively sporty. I'm not sure why, but it does make it feel a little darty on the highway, especially in a crosswind. We get some bad winds down here in New Mexico. Lastly, you have eco mode and sport mode buttons, which do affect, you can feel the difference. That's the important note. Eco mode kind of feels like everything's just been dulled a little bit. You really have to get in the gas to get moving, and it slows the transmission down, as well it should, and it would yield a little bit better fuel economy. Sport mode quickens both of those things up, and you do notice that one as well. I kind of like sport mode just because you felt like the car had a little bit more power. You didn't have to step on it so thoroughly. But overall, you can drive in either of those modes quite comfortably. Eco mode's probably going to yield you, a little bit better fuel economy, unless you're constantly hammering on it just to get up to speed. Then it kind of defeats the purpose. All right, let's see where we're at here. In that whole stretch, we've kind of gone somewhere between 70 to 80 miles an hour. We are averaging 31.4 miles per gallon. And we're going west, and typically this time of year we got a pretty good headwind going in that direction, so not bad. Nice job, Toyota. As always, I want to give a shout out to the people that make these test drives happen. In this case, Jim over at Amigo Toyota and all the folks there. Thanks as usual for letting me drive the new RAV4, and thanks to you guys, of course, for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share. We'll see you next time.